What if I told you some of the greatest inventions, discoveries, and breakthroughs in human history were never planned? No blueprint, no master plan, just mistakes, accidents, and failures that turned into genius. Today's video is not about a born genius. It's about an ordinary person who stumbled into greatness. This is the story of accidental genius. Before 1928, a paper cut could be a death sentence. It's something we often forget, but for millennia, humanity lived at the mercy of an invisible enemy, one that hid in the soil on our skin and in the very air we breathed. A minor scrape, a simple tooth extraction, a complication during childbirth. Any of these could spiral into agonizing, unstoppable sepsis. Doctors were brilliant. Surgeons were skilled. But against the rapidly multiplying menace of bacteria, their best efforts were often little more than desperate and futile gestures. Yet, in the cluttered corners of a laboratory in London, a quiet change was brewing. This is not a story of careful planning or calculated genius. It is a story of chance, of serendipity, of a mistake and the brilliance to recognize it. This is the story of penicillin, the drug that defeated infection, born not from intention but from a forgotten summer holiday and a simple speck of mold. It is the most successful mistake in medical history. Meet Sir Alexander Fleming, a man known as much for his scientific brilliance as for his notoriously untidy work habits. At St. Mary's Hospital in London, Fleming, a bacteriologist, was obsessed with the greatest killer of his time, bacterial infection. In 1921, he had already discovered something remarkable: lysozyme, an antibacterial enzyme found in tears and saliva. It proved that the human body itself held clues to defeating germs. But lysozyme was weak. It couldn't touch the deadliest bacteria. Fleming didn't need a scalpel. He needed a sledgehammer. It was the summer of 1928. Fleming was preparing for a much-needed vacation, and true to form, he left his lab in controlled chaos. On one bench sat a stack of petri dishes, growing cultures of Staphylococcus, the bacteria responsible for boils and abscesses. What followed was a chain of improbabilities. While Fleming was away, a single spore, Penicillium notatum, floated through an open window. The weather was perfect. A cool spell allowed the mold to settle. A warm spell followed, allowing the bacteria to grow. When Fleming returned, he began sorting through the mess. Then he saw it. Not just a contaminated dish, but a small blue-green patch of mold. And surrounding it, a clear ring. A perfect bacteria-free halo. The bacteria everywhere else thrived except near the mold. Fleming later recalled his reaction, dry and understated. That's funny. The accident wasn't the genius. Recognizing its importance, that was. Where others would have tossed the dish away, Fleming investigated. He isolated the mold, grew it in broth, and discovered that the liquid itself was lethal to many deadly bacteria. He named the substance after the mold, penicillin. But discovery was only the beginning. Fleming was a bacteriologist, not a chemist. Penicillin was unstable, fragile, and present in maddeningly tiny amounts. He couldn't purify it into a usable drug. He tried. In 1929, he published his findings, announcing its potential. The world shrugged. Penicillin worked beautifully in a petri dish, but vanished too quickly inside the human body. And so the greatest life-saving drug in history sat dormant for nearly a decade. As the 1930s ended, Europe raced toward war. Battlefield wounds were inevitable. Infections were guaranteed. The search for a powerful antiseptic was no longer academic, it was a matter of survival. The baton passed to Oxford. Howard Florey, an Australian pathologist, and Ernst Chain, a brilliant Jewish refugee chemist, revisited Fleming's forgotten paper. Florey brought organization and relentless drive. Chain brought the missing chemical genius. Together, they faced an enormous challenge, isolating a compound that decomposed almost instantly and existed in microscopic quantities. This was the second act of genius. Chain developed a method to freeze-dry the substance, transforming it into a usable brown powder. For the first time, penicillin was ready. In 1940, they ran the ultimate test. 8 mice were infected with a lethal dose of bacteria. 4 received penicillin. 4 did not. The untreated mice died. The treated mice lived. It worked, but the reality was brutal. To save one human life, they would need thousands of times more penicillin than they could produce. They grew the mold in anything they could find: bedpans, milk churns, bottles. Scientists became farmers. Then came Albert Alexander, a dying policeman with a severe infection. Injected with penicillin, he stabilized. His fever dropped. The infection retreated. A miracle. But the supply ran out. Without the next dose, Alexander relapsed and died. The lesson was devastating. Britain could not mass-produce penicillin during wartime, so the future of the drug and possibly the world had to move. Florey flew to the United States. The precious mold spores were smuggled in the linings of his coat. In America, science, government, and industry united. Then another accident. A lab assistant named Mary Hunt discovered a high-yield strain of Penicillium growing on a moldy cantaloupe. Another breakthrough followed. Adding corn steep liquor, a cheap waste product, boosted production 2,000-fold. By D-Day in 1944, penicillin was available for every Allied soldier. Battlefield wounds were no longer death sentences. Penicillin became known simply as the wonder drug. In 1945, Fleming, Florey, and Chain shared the Nobel Prize. The untidy discoverer, the brilliant chemist, the relentless organizer. Together they ushered in the age of modern medicine. But the story doesn't end there. Bacteria adapted. In his Nobel speech, Fleming warned that misuse and overuse would lead to resistance. He was right. Superbugs now threaten to return us to a world before penicillin. We owe our lives to a forgotten petri dish. Now, science must once again search for the next accident, the next genius, the next miracle. Because if Fleming had cleaned his lab that day, the world might be very different. Remember this: failure is not the opposite of success. Sometimes it is the beginning of genius. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs motivation today. Thank you for watching.